Every culture has its ghost stories, and India is home to some of the most chilling haunted locations in the world. There is a primal fear attached to these ancient ruins, a sense that the darkness is holding on to something it refuses to let go of. Take Shaniwar Wada, for example. Locals and night guards report hearing a very specific, desperate cry echoing through the courtyards, Kaka Mala Vachva, which translates to, "Uncle, save me." But we should consider an alternative origin for these stories. Perhaps the phenomena keeping people awake at night are actually the echoes of horrific historical crimes, atrocities that were never formally brought to justice. Psychologists refer to this process as collective trauma projection. This diagram illustrates the timeline of how it works. When a society experiences a painful, unresolved event, the factual historical record slowly decays. To compensate, the emotional trauma expands, translating the pain into folklore and myth to ensure the memory survives across generations. Under this lens, a haunting becomes something entirely different. It acts as a centuries-old crime scene where the victims are simply refusing to be forgotten. To see how this trauma embeds itself into a location, we can look at the physical remains of Shaniwar Wada in Pune. In the 18th century, this imposing stone fort served as the formidable seat of the Peshwas, the prime ministers of the Maratha Empire. Inside these walls, a brutal political assassination took place. The young ruling Peshwa, Narayan Rao, was murdered by assassins. The man who orchestrated the killing was his own uncle, Raghunath Rao, pictured here. The historical accounts of Narayan Rao's final moments are terrifying. He was chased from his sleeping quarters, rushing through the corridors in a blind panic, screaming for the very man who ordered his death. He yelled the exact phrase locals claim to hear today, "Uncle, save me." Even today, reports of this paranormal activity peak annually on Anant Chaturdashi. That date marks the exact anniversary of the young Peshwa's murder, linking the supernatural myth directly to the date of the historical crime. The lingering terror of Shaniwar Wada originates from a deep societal shock. A ruling family allowed greed to override the basic human bonds of blood and trust, leaving a psychological scar on the culture that outlasted the empire itself. A very different kind of trauma is recorded in the Himalayan foothills. In the early 20th century, the British embarked on a colossal engineering challenge, building the Kalka-Shimla railway line through extreme mountainous terrain. At this stop, Barog Station, the task of piercing the solid mountain for tunnel number 33 fell to a British engineer named Colonel Barog. This diagram shows the cross-section of the mountain and Colonel Barog's specific engineering strategy. To save time and speed up construction, he ordered his crews to bore through the rock from opposite sides simultaneously, calculating that they would meet perfectly in the middle. But the calculations were completely wrong. Deep inside the mountain, the two tunnels bypassed each other entirely. The alignment was ruined. The British government's response was swift and uniquely punishing. They fined the disgraced engineer exactly 1 rupee for wasting state property. The sheer weight of this public humiliation drove Barog to despair, and he took his own life near the entrance of his incomplete tunnel. Locals now speak of Colonel Barog as a friendly ghost who lingers near the tracks. This specific legend acts as a manifestation of collective empathy, reflecting our own deep-seated anxieties regarding catastrophic professional failure and unredeemed mistakes. Sometimes, the trauma belongs to an entire community. In the stark Rajasthan desert lies Kuldhara, a sprawling settlement of stone houses and empty streets that looks as though the residents abandoned it yesterday. Established in the 13th century, Kuldhara was a highly prosperous village built by the Paliwal Brahmins. Their wealth and peace were shattered when a tyrannical local ruler demanded heavy taxes and the chief's daughter, threatening slaughter if they refused. Faced with this overwhelming threat, the community pulled off a staggering logistical feat. Rather than submit to the tyrant, the entire population of Kuldhara packed their belongings and walked out into the desert overnight, vanishing without a trace. Before leaving, they placed a curse on the land, declaring that no one would ever be able to settle in their village again. And to this day, the ruins remain completely uninhabited. We can view this curse as a political scorched earth tactic. By weaponizing local superstition, the villagers created a powerful psychological deterrent, permanently denying the tyrant the economic prize of their land. A political assassination, a devastating professional humiliation, an overnight exodus from systemic oppression. The glaring commonality binding these three locations together is the absence of closure. None of the victims in these stories received justice in the official historical record. When official history is written by the victors, the wealthy or the powerful, the truth of the marginalized is often erased. In the absence of a formal record, folklore and ghost stories become the only archives available to the defeated. We do not preserve these haunted places because the dead walk there. We preserve them because the history of what the living did to them is far more terrifying than any ghost.